Alright everyone, the main story of the day here is definitely the ADL's new hit piece on BitChute. So congratulations to Ray Vahi and to BitChute. You've gotten big enough to be defamed by the ADL, and not just smaller groups like Right Wing Watch. I think, didn't the SPLC also earlier this year, if I remember correctly as well, make an article? And the basic idea of the article is it's a really hyperbolic piece. Link in the description. Archived, of course. Remember, always use archive.today. It pisses these sites off when they can't get their clickbait revenue. And the basic idea, though, is that BitChute is predominantly full of, like, Nazis and stuff. And we've heard this before, and maybe 2 years ago, if you had gone to BitChute, it would have been dominated at the very least by socio-political commentary and sort of weird side of YouTube content. That would have been true then. The thing is that the site has grown, what, 10, 20 times since then. Most of those users aren't even political. A casual stroll through BitChute will show you that there's a lot of tutorials there now, educational, including mainline content, and then you have people like me that I haven't. The other thing is basically, well, it's basically a repository of people who've been banned for being too edgy on YouTube. That's not true at all. I'm their largest user. Now, the ADL never reached out apparently to Ray for any comment, which is, normal. Certainly didn't reach out to me as its largest user. They're sitting there saying, well, Stefan Molyneux, who was banned on YouTube in July, has like 2 million views on the platform. Dude, I've got 14 million views on the platform. I wasn't included in your list. Apparently, I'm not spicy enough. See, the problem is that if they actually did a who's who of like the top users, let's say that they looked at the top 100 users by subscriber and view total, I think you'd find that there was an outsized proportion of them that were part of like the dissident reporter, dissident journo, libertarian thing. Yeah, there are definitely people that have ethno-nationalistic and what you could loosely term in some cases, I would agree, hateful beliefs on BitChute. The thing is, it's legal. That's the whole point. YouTube and other tech firms, mainline tech firms, have begun to increasingly editorialize content for purposes other than policing illegal behavior, botting, things of that nature. Harassment, actual harassment, things on site that are disruptive or illegal. Of course, that was always under 230. It's perfectly fine for these companies to editorialize it. That's the whole point of having the terms of service. Under 230, they're given sweeping protections from copyright violation lawsuits, as well as from stuff related to people posting illegal content, with the understanding that they will not further editorialize the content. That's the whole point of 230. If the mainline sites have begun to wantonly violate that, and 230 no longer provides any reasonable protection for content creators that are otherwise conforming to U.S. law, of course, people are going to reach out for alternatives. I take exception to the idea that BitChute is a hateful site. BitChute itself is structured around free speech, and I like how their tagline is like, under the guise of free speech. BitChute is platforming hateful, dangerous individuals. That's literally what free speech is. And yes, material has been removed that is inciting violence and encouraging like terrorism and stuff like that, which also YouTube does. Library does it. Every video hosting site has that in its terms of service. I don't think there's any exception to that general rule because that falls outside of the law. There's a difference, though, between somebody doing that and somebody simply hating on a different group of people. While you may consider that hateful or discriminatory, it's not illegal. And that's the whole point of all tech, and there was a time when YouTube and other sites functioned in the same way. YouTube 10 years ago was entirely different than it is today. As far as its allowance of political speech, it was extremely laissez-faire. Silicon Valley initially was basically vaguely left libertarian in nature, insofar as left libertarianism can exist in the broader economic sense. I would say, of course, they definitely wanted those tax protections, definitely wanted those grants and subsidies. They didn't really give a fuck what you said as far as political speech. They would go after, well, they didn't even really go after spam back then, let's face it, sexual content, youth violence, literal terrorist content to an extent, although they had all sorts of war footage on YouTube. Now it's considered too graphic for people. BitChute, therefore, is a repository of truth. It's a place where people can give their truthful opinions. Now, let me put it this way as well, again, as its largest user on BitChute. Most of the content that I have on my BitChute channel is already on YouTube. None of it falls outside of the TOS. Even my exclusives, if you actually review them, they're no different from the main videos that I make. They would still conform to YouTube TOS. The only reason they're there is to give people an incentive to use the alternative site. because I think that it's important for there to be an alternative site. When I see so many people that I want to watch, not just people like Malnu, the laundry list is enormous of people that have been, at the very least, algorithmically throttled on YouTube at this point. This is also why, for every Facebook, there's a Minds. This is why there's not just Twitter. There are Gab and Parler. This is why, instead of using Patreon, you can use Subscribestar. And again, the list goes on. There's a reason why I use so many different sites for my videos. I'm not worried about being censored. Algorithmically throttled? Yes. Banned off YouTube or something? No, I don't worry about that at all. I don't worry about waking up in the morning and not having a YouTube account. But I worry that someone that I want to watch won't have one, and I want to follow them on other sites. I worry about being throttled to the point where the content simply isn't viewable by parts of my audience. I want to give them an alternative. And the idea as well that a site that's predominantly Nazis and hateful could grow to the size of BitChute is preposterous anyway. Have you checked their Alexa rankings? Are you indicating the belief that there are literally millions of Nazis within the United States, ADL? That doesn't seem sensible to me. You'd probably find millions of hardline leftists in the country. I don't think you could find that many ethno-nats. People with vaguely identitarian beliefs? Maybe. But again, not all of them even use BitChute. I see them bitching on other sites about BitChute because, well, BitChute took down my video where I encourage gassing people. Well, yeah, because that sort of incitement could fall outside of US law. Of course it's going to get policed. But nobody cares if you're just using racial slurs or something. Nobody gives a fuck. BitChute literally having to develop its own commenting system, I bet. It's not coincidental that this ADL hit piece comes again within that same 2-month span of time that more and more people jumped aboard. Multiple large users are purged on YouTube. They and their audiences, their core audiences, pile onto BitChute. BitChute skyrockets in size. It gets positive mentions on various sites. It cracks the top 1,000 on Alexa for US rankings, and it's rising up very quickly in world rankings as well. All of a sudden, you start getting hit pieces from more mainline sites. Now, Right Wing Watch was bitching about them 2 years ago, impotently. BitChute ends up getting throttled by their host, by their payment processor, and so forth. Has managed to forge its way through it. And again, I reiterate, what these mainline tech sites are worried about is not that BitChute is a repository for edgy content. Edgy content's great, but it only goes so far. Most people are interested in mundane content. You can get it on YouTube. As more and more people are purged, and as BitChute goes around more and more layers of throttling, like the fact that nothing there appears in any Google search, the fact that the links are half blocked on Twitter and so forth, and certainly in Facebook messages, they're worried that the site will get large enough so that eventually it'll become the natural alternative and suck the life out of mainline tech, because not in mainline tech you can get your mundane content. On alt tech you can get the mundane content and the edgy content. People are going to prefer the latter. If you want to control the narrative and you want to have a vertical monopoly of a half a dozen sites that basically control 99% of all digital human communication, and a site or two breaks that containment that they've created, manages to maneuver around them, they will become the dominant site. By default, because more material is welcome there. You have nationalistic movements in parts of the non-Western world, like in India, certainly it's a huge thing. Some of the things they talk about on mainline tech are banned under the TOS. BitChute doesn't care. They're also worried because there's a burgeoning number of people in what we call the developing world, piling onto the internet for the first time in many cases with devices capable of interacting on a social media basis beyond simple text chat. Those people might end up preferring alt tech, flooding them with hundreds of millions of new users, and making them dominant. Another thing they worry about is BitChute's not US based. That's the other thing. Now, my answer to this is, if you're so worried about it, then stop regulating the political speech and edgy content on YouTube and all these other sites. Go back to the way you were doing things if you want US tech to be dominant. Subscribestar, if I remember correctly, is based out of Russia. I end up using it more than Patreon because it's more functional. And it's certainly not going to ban me off of their service. Yeah, so I guess that Moscow is raising a few dollars a month off of my efforts there. It's terrible. Maybe they'll use it to buy more troll farm Facebook ads. This wouldn't be a fucking problem if it weren't for idiot groups like the ADL and the SPLC that are essentially protection rackets anyway. One hand washes the other. Here's the partnership. ADL, SPLC, and so forth. They partner with a political or technological group or a business firm. And they say essentially in no uncertain terms, give us some money, give us moral support, and if you ever get and have a competitor, we can knock them off their high horse. We'll go after their sponsors and fuck them up real hard. It's not even really a protection racket, it's just a vertical monopoly. It's quasi-illegal, so I'm not making any allegations of illegality before they decide to lawyer up here. But I am saying that this article's bullshit. From top to bottom, it's bullshit. A couple of the people that they mention are actually ethno-nationalistic. Some of them aren't. Some of these people have already been defamed, by the way, by the ADL. Unfortunately, they haven't yet noticed my existence. It's very, very sad. I guess the idea of someone with 666 in their username who's a self-proclaimed libertarian who, is known for clanking his spoon in his coffee and talking about how free speech needs to be absolute. I suppose that doesn't coincide with their tale about BitChute being a repository of Nazis. Yeah, look at me. I'm obviously a fucking skinhead. Maybe I'll go bald in 20 years, and then they can make a defamatory hit piece about me finally. I'm protected by my weird manner of dress and the fact that I've got a 12-year-long track record of being consistently a classical liberal. Doesn't fit in with their story very well now, does it? Very, very sad. So yeah, take a look at the link in the description, archived, of course. And it's chuckleable. It'll give you something to laugh at over your morning coffee. Make sure to do some clanking. That's about all. Peace out.